Alrighty. All right. Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to a brand new episode of Geek Vibes Live Interview. I'm your host, Tia, and I have with me the director for the horror movie I Am Lisa, Patrick Ria. Is it Ria or Rhea?
It's actually pronounced Ray.
Ray. Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
Patrick Ray, how
yeah.
are you today?
I'm great. I'm great. It's 2 days after Halloween, and I already miss it, but now we've got the holidays to look forward to. So
Exactly. How was your Halloween, by the way? Because I know certain states cancel trick or treating. I'm in New York and I have a friend who has a younger sister, and I was like, okay, is she going to go trick or treating? And she was like, yeah, that was canceled this year.
we actually had a really good one. Like I took my kids. We went to a friend's place who they've been quarantining as well, and so we just set up like a scavenger hunt in the backyard. And we like attached the little glow sticks to all the bags of candy, so it was kind of like a nighttime scavenger hunt for looking for candy and stuff. But that neighborhood was really busy. So they actually had individually wrapped bags of candy that they put out on a table so that people could take them. And I just sat in the driveway, and I was dressed up as Snake Plissken from Escape from New York, which none of the kids understood, but that's okay. Yeah, it was good. It was a lot of fun.
Halloween is my favorite holiday, and so I actually spoke with Eric on Saturday on Halloween, the writer EP of I Am Lisa, and I had a Stranger Things like Robin costume on, so I was like, okay, I feel a little like I'm partaking in the celebration. But first of all, Eric was amazing, Kristen was amazing. I'm super excited to speak with you about I Am Lisa, which follows the main character, Lisa. I wanted to ask you what drew you to the script of I Am Lisa and made you want to even be a part of this project?
For me, it was all about the fact that it was a female-driven movie. I thought that made it interesting, and I'm not gonna lie, like as a kid, one of my bigger inspirations for getting into filmmaking was RoboCop, which is a revenge movie, and a lot of people don't ever really see it as that. But that movie and Darkman were two of my favorite movies, and they're both revenge movies. So I've always wanted to make a film in that particular style. But the fact that this was kind of more of a female-driven story, all the lead characters are women, and originally when the original script, most of the villains were men, and then we changed the gender of those characters, which I thought made it way more interesting. And so that's really what drew me to it, because I thought it was kind of a fresh spin on that kind of the same story that you would see, except it's female driven, and it's also combined with the werewolf genre, which made it even more interesting. So that's what got me excited about it. He pitched it to me. It was funny because I actually directed a family film, which a lot of people don't know. And his son, I cast Eric's son in the movie. And so he was on set still pitching me the movie. This was like in 2016 or 17. And he's like, yeah, I still got this werewolf movie I want to do. And so finally, flash forward to like maybe the fall or winter of 2018. And I started kind of really thinking about getting involved, and I really liked the movie. And so I was originally just going to be a producer on the film. And then I decided to take on directing as well. And I had a blast. It was just a great time shooting. We filmed the movie in middle of July in Missouri, which is, if anyone's from Missouri knows, it's really uncomfortably hot around that time. And so we had to deal with a lot of weather issues, but everybody was great, and it was just a wonderful experience.
It's funny you say that. So when I spoke with Eric Winkler, the writer and EP of I Am Lisa, he first of all said the same thing about RoboCop, and also said that it was quite hot where you were filming.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, that's the thing, is that he and I both kind of have this love for the movie RoboCop, and we would always talk about it. Like RoboCop 2 was my first R-rated movie that I got to go with my dad to. So that movie was kind of like, it has a special place for my generation, I guess. And so and a lot of people don't really remember it as being a revenge movie, but it totally is. So And one thing that movie did was it made each individual villain character interesting. And I think that's something that was kind of a challenge for us, in the sense that we were trying to make each individual bad girl in this movie kind of have their own look and their own style. And I think that's what will help make the movie stand out more to an audience.
Yeah, it had definitely this revenge feel to it. Obviously, what happens to Lisa in the course of the film, it's like, when you first watch it, I mean, first of all, Kristen is absolutely amazing as Lisa, and she just seems like this very like warm person who just
Right.
goes through the ringer with this girl Jessica and her mother and all that. So what did you think of, say, first of all, you said that most of the villains were male, which is interesting. What was your mindset in directing, where really it didn't seem like Kristen did anything to kind of deserve to be, brutalized so badly? So how did you kind of like segment that into something to be brought to life and be, say, like believable?
I mean, again, I think a lot of it was in the rehearsals and the performances. We had a lot of table reads beforehand with the actors, and kind of created what I would say some unspoken backstory to these characters, so that, because you're kind of put in the middle of the situation where obviously these girls have been picking on her for a while now, and they have a reputation, so that all of that has to be kind of come through in the performances too. So it was really kind of a way of just kind of adding layers to that in the performances, and fine-tuning the dialogue when we were doing rehearsals. And I just wanted all these girls to have kind of a chemistry with each other, which I thought was important. Since, I mean, Kristen, it's interesting because Kristen is the outsider of the group, in the sense that all these actresses came from Kansas City and they've known each other for a while. And Kristen was the outsider. We cast her out of Los Angeles. So that kind of helped, I think, in playing her kind of as the outsider and the one who they focus their negativity on as well. So, but I think it just kind of comes out. We wanted somebody to play Lisa that got that instantly. You like her, like instantly, and you feel terrible for her when she's put in these situations, and you want her to succeed. You want her to overcome these things. So I feel like that was probably the most important aspect of making this movie, was getting the casting of her character correct. We also wanted the main sheriff character and the actress to play her to be just, and of course, Manon Halliburton does a fantastic job in that role. But she is the nicest person in the world. I have to keep telling people. I was like, no, she's really not like that, guys. I mean, she's really not that evil. But it was funny because she came in and did a table read very early on, before we even cast Kristen, and it was pretty obvious from the get-go. We're like, yeah, she's the right person for that role. And at that point, it was a male playing the sheriff. It had written that way. And so we just had to adjust the script and make it work. Same thing with Jessica. Jessica was a man. And so we flip-flopped all that stuff. And I think it becomes more about, it's got a bullying aspect to it. It's got a kind of, subtext about police corruption that I think is pertinent to what's going on in this, in society right now. And so, but I think that switching the genders really made it more interesting. And ultimately that was what got me to do it. Cause I think I'm not sure I would have made the film if it had been all male villains.
Yeah, it certainly worked really well, because with a lot of movies where it's girl versus girl, it can be kind of catty and a little petty, but you never really felt that with this. First of all, I mean, Jessica really did seem like a very dangerous person. And so there's certainly those aspects. When you were directing all of the actors, I mean, for the most part, every line that was said, was that in the script, or was there any moment where someone ad-libbed anything particular?
Yeah, I think there was. I mean, I can't exactly point to exact moments, but we were, Eric was, God bless him, he was very flexible with his dialogue. And if the actors had a better idea and it worked, we would go with it. And so I think that was very, very good. It kept things a little bit more fluid and spontaneous, and I think it ultimately makes the movie flow better. I always tell people, this isn't David Mamet. We're making a horror movie, but let's be flexible with the dialogue. And I know that Manon had a lot of different changes to the script, her dialogue, and there would be like times where we would be changing a couple of lines that she had literally like right before the take. So, you know, and she comes from theater, and Manon was also on The Sopranos, so she's been around for quite a while, doing a lot of film and TV and theater stage work, and so she's got to have a little bit of spontaneity that has to come through, I think, and you know, when things don't quite go as you plan. So yeah, no, I think there was definitely, I know with Sam's character, there was a few moments where we tried some different things, but yeah, we were never married to anything, and that's, I think, important sometimes, is to kind of come in. You can have your structure of what you're going to do that day. You can have your shots figured out. You can have your lighting figured out, but you got to be able to kind of roll with the punches a little bit with the dialogue and the characters, just enough so that people aren't feeling like they're boxed in. You know what I'm saying?
Right. 100%. And so I Am Lisa is an indie film, right? But it first of all had like great production. To me, I really like indie films. I'm not saying this just because I'm interviewing you right now. I legit liked the movie and thought that it was really creative, a lot of the ways that certain scenes played out. And I wanted to talk about, it was something really interesting that you and I had spoken about over chat. One of the kills and I guess spoiler alert for those who are listening, but one of the kills in the movie was really interesting, how you said that even came to be. What, say, gave you the inspiration, or like, how did you figure out to make that scene, which is, for full disclosure, involving a deep fryer? How did you figure out to use, what you used in that scene?
Okay, so funny story. That is the shot where you see from below her face in the water, was the final shot that we ever got for this movie. So I cut the movie on the computer that we're talking from right now. And I had the whole movie edited, and then I had like a little like picture in there, just said, face being fried. Like, I needed to get that one shot for the scene to make sense. So we had to actually, like, because we shot in a real kitchen in a restaurant, I believe in Kearney, Missouri, and they were gracious enough to let us shoot inside the kitchen and use the bar area. But obviously, there was no way to get that shot, because you needed to have a clear plexiglass visual of her face. So we had to build this table, and then we filled it with, because it needed to look like grease, we filled it with water mixed with coffee grounds. And then when we actually started rolling, we put her face in, and then we dropped in Alka-Seltzer and let it kind of look like it was boiling around her face.
Right.
And, literally we had to set the camera underneath the table and shoot through the clear glass. First couple takes, that we figured out that the plexiglass that we were shooting from wasn't properly glued. So we filled it with water, and then we put the camera underneath, and the water started pouring out of the corners onto the camera. So we were like, frantically trying to make sure that it was properly sealed. I mean, those are the things you have to kind of think about. Like, 'cause, we shot everything we could in the actual kitchen. Right. And it actually had a thing filled with real grease. I'm like, I'm not sticking her face in that. No way. So, and then we had to deal with the fact that we had to spend about an hour and a half getting the makeup on her face. And then it took another hour and a half to get it off. So we just didn't have time for that one shot. But those are the things that you kind of have to think about when you're making a movie. You're like, okay, I want this shot, but how do we achieve that without, with a very slim budget?
Well, I was going to say, with the budget that you had to do a lot of practical effects. You had told me over chat that the only CGI was the fire in the bookstore. Yeah. Would you say that those sort of challenges, though, are something maybe that you enjoy doing when it comes to indie films?
Yeah, I do. It's like I'm a glutton for punishment. Seriously, I love having to sit there and figure out how we're going to do things. And in some ways, you have to kind of be realistic with yourself, because you're like, all right, I obviously can't do I can't do a car chase down the interstate for this. You know, those kind of things. You're like, I just can't. Otherwise, we're going to get arrested or we're going to cause a real car accident. Like, so you have to sit there and you have to think, okay, what can we do within the means that we, you know, obviously you want to try to raise everything and elevate the project. But yeah, with the deaths were a little bit more complicated in the original script. There was some more stuff in there that we just didn't have the money and time for. And like in the case of the one death that happens in the park with the Nick character, we had one take for that, and that was it. 'Cause that's all we had time for, and that's all we had. You know, we had one bladder that we could use for the neck, and so those are the things that you're like, all right, this is one take, and we better get it. And so I know that Jake Jackson, who did the makeup, he did a lot of testing beforehand to make sure everything was going to work. Just because we just didn't have enough time and money to do multiple takes. So, and it was funny because the night that we shot that scene, it was raining. And so we were waiting for the rain to stop, and then we had to run out there and shoot it before the rain started again. Oh, so those are the kind of things that you just have to kind of deal with. You know, and same thing with like, and one of the things that's part of the world of indie filmmaking is you got your schedule and you have all your locations lined up. And if there are any like changes to that schedule, it can be a domino effect or a ripple effect that can mess a lot of things up. So we had one day where it's the scene where Lisa's in the woods, and all of the scenes with her in the woods we shot in one location in like a small town outside of Kansas City. And it was going to be 105 degrees with the heat index. Wow. So they were telling you, they had a heat advisory saying, please don't go outside if you don't have to. Well, you know, me and the UPM, we sat there with the schedule and we're like, do we cancel today and maybe try to move this to a different day? And it was like, if we did that, then we would lose the location for the next day. And it started to turn in this domino effect where, you know, if you don't have time, a big budget and a lot of time, we just had to power through and we had to make it work. And, you know, it's one of those things where we were in the woods and luckily it was shaded. And anybody who wasn't working on that specific moment could stay inside the house that was close by with the air conditioning. Mm-hmm. We had plenty of water and we, you know, so you just have to kind of make that stuff work when you're working together. We shot the whole movie. The principal shoot was 14 days, okay, which is
that normal for?
It's very short. It's very, very short. And so, you know, I had to kind of think, all right, in terms of locations, you know, the thing that takes a lot of time when you're making a movie is moving your crew from one location to the next. So I had to think, okay, well, how do I get all my locations relatively close together? So the bookstore where she works in the film was maybe a block from the movie theater where they go to see the movie. And it was maybe another block from her apartment. So I was constantly thinking in terms of, all right, logistically, how do we get to all these places quickly and without getting behind in the schedule? So those are the things that you just have to kind of think about.
It's the things that certainly makes it work.
Right.
You wouldn't think that you only had 14 days of, you know, principal photography and all of that by watching the movie. Right. So we were talking just about how, like, there was obviously changes to some of the kills and the script as it goes on, which I'm assuming in show business is kind of just natural. That kill between Lisa and Jessica, was that always originally meant to be like that? Because I felt that it was interesting how it played out, where you thought it was going to be very, like, a lot more brutal than it was, but there was beauty almost to the simplicity of it.
And that was entirely, we decided to do that. It was a lot more brutal, and then we decided to make it almost, you know, sweet and you know what I'm saying? Like, there was some innocence to it, even though, because there's a hesitation. Because there's that moment in the movie where she could kill her and she doesn't.
Right.
We wanted to make it something a little different. Because obviously the kill right before that is a little bit more brutal. And so, it was almost like here's an interesting comparison. The movie Drive, where Bryan Cranston dies. I don't know if you've seen the movie Drive.
actually haven't. It's
Okay,
but
okay.
it's okay for spoilers. I'm fine with
There's a
spoilers.
moment in that movie where Bryan Cranston is obviously, spoiler alert, Bryan Cranston dies in the movie. But the kill could have been really brutal. Instead, it was almost merciful by the guy who does it. And so that was kind of the way we wanted to do her, was, okay, it could have gone full on just really brutal. And we decided to kind of make it like, I'm going to kill you, but I'm going to do it in a way that isn't like, it's still bad, but it's not, there's a softness to it. So, yeah. And that was a one take. Had to get it in one take, or we were going to be back, having to spend a lot of time resetting it. So, and we were shooting in a real nightclub in Shawnee, Kansas. It was interesting. We shot most of the movie on the Missouri side, and the way Kansas City's set up, it's split. There's Kansas City, Kansas, and there's Kansas City, Missouri. Right. So we shot the nightclub stuff was all on the Kansas side, and almost everything else in the movie was on the Missouri side. So we had a great time that day shooting that stuff. And I was just happy. One of the things that, as an independent filmmaker, you're always happy when extras actually show up. I can imagine. Anyone who's ever made a indie film know that it's so hard to get the extras to actually show up. And so we were happy that people were there. So we weren't putting crew members in the shots, I
can understand the struggle with that. Really quick, when I was in college, I interned actually in a semester over at the Jerry Springer show, and which is totally crazy. But there were times where, say, either a lot of audience wouldn't show up, or maybe there was an audience member who had gotten a little too intoxicated. We had to pull them out, and so us interns were responsible for sitting down in there to make up. So about 8 years ago, if there's any footage out there of old Jerry Springer episodes, you can
probably
see in the
office.
office.
I watched that show when I was in junior high school. I watched that show all the time.
Oh yeah, I loved it. Admittedly, I kind of stopped watching after I interned. There are no bad experiences, but then I was like, okay, I've seen it up close.
It lost a little bit of its mystique, maybe.
Well, when you're watching on TV and everything's blurred out and bleeped out, and then you're there in real life and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. They're actually doing all this. But going back to I Am Lisa, so it's about this girl who got bit. She transforms into a werewolf. Would you say in the monster genre, how does werewolves rank for you? Are they above vampires and zombies, below?
I would put them above vampires for me, because I like The Howling. That's one of my favorite movies. I feel like there's a lot less werewolf movies. I feel like there's a lot more vampire movies. So I would definitely put werewolves ahead of that. And again, one thing we struggled with this movie was we had to decide how far we were going to go with the werewolf transformation at the end. And my whole thing was, I didn't want to go too far into camp, because the movie's right on that fine line anyway, because it kind of teeters on camp, but it's more serious. So it's okay, and it has humor, but it doesn't go too far into comedy. So if you go too over the top with the werewolf transformation, everybody's gonna, and if you don't have the money to pull it off and make it look like Rick Baker did it, it doesn't quite work. So we decided to kind of go a little bit more subtle with it. And also, I think that it's good because you still get to see that there's a person in there. There's an actual performance being, through the makeup. And I think that, maybe that's why I like the movie Wolf with Jack Nicholson so much, is because you're seeing Jack Nicholson you start still seeing his performance through the makeup. Yeah. So I think that's why we decided to go that route.
And you don't want to cover up Kristen's acting. I'll sing her praises to the rooftop. She was just such an amazing person. But yeah, it was just funny. I was telling Eric this. Every Sunday I do a top 10 sort of podcast. And for Halloween, we did, top 10 vampires, top 10 zombies. And me and my coworker were trying to determine, should we do werewolves? And I was like, there really isn't a whole lot of werewolf content out there. Right. It was funny that then I Am Lisa came, to me. But it was an interesting take on werewolves that I think worked. I like when these genres stray away from following the book per per se with these
Right.
monsters.
And I, again, like I didn't want to do something that's been done a million times. So that's why I think I thought that the movie, because I watch every horror movie that I can get my hands on. So I was kind of like, I got to do something with this that's a little different. Otherwise, it's just going to kind of fade into to everything else that's been made at this point. So, and I think the people who are liking the movie are seeing that it's different, and I think that's what's appealing to them.
Absolutely. And Patrick, I hope you don't mind me asking. I asked Eric about this, and I feel that it's only natural, but we had talked about the unfortunate of trolling pretty much that's happening on IMDb when it comes to I Am Lisa. I mean, how did that feel for you to see that there were kind of people unnecessarily sort of review bombing this film when you see like Rotten Tomatoes has an 88% like score, right?
Yeah, right.
So it's like clearly people are liking it, and I think that this whole review bombing is something that is a problem because we've seen it with other movies.
Yes, it's a problem with a lot of indie horror, I've noticed, because I've seen it on other movies, and it's funny because a lot of the reviews that pop up have similar wording. So you're like, I wonder if these are pre-written reviews that they're just throwing up there. And I should have warned Eric, because I had this happen on some of my previous movies too, where you're like, well, where did this come from? And, generally the reviews have been very good. So it's like, I don't know. Like, you have to kind of have a thick skin and just understand that a lot of those reviews are probably coming from people who are very unhappy.
So you would say that, like, when you saw them, you kind of didn't get like personally maybe offended. You just kind of were like, what, that's the business.
It's just all part of the process. But I think for Eric being new to the whole process, I think that he was a little surprised. But I told him, I said, look, here's the deal. Like, people who are genuine reviewers and people who are genuine fans of the genre, like the movie, I said a lot of this stuff are probably people who are just either they're angry at the fact that it's a female-driven movie, or they're not even watching the movie and they're just writing reviews to lower the scores. And so I've seen it happen to other fellow filmmakers, and it's so funny because we're all kind of like talk about it like it's a badge of honor in some ways, because they're all like, yeah, we have the same problem in our movie, and that's the problem inherently with the IMDb review system, is that it's like anybody can go in there and just write whatever they want. And while Rotten Tomatoes, I think we're at 89% as of today.
Oh, okay. That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's like, those are actually, those reviewers are approved by Rotten Tomatoes, and it's not like it's anybody who can just go in there and write something. So I had to shake it off, because I've seen a lot of movies where I'm like, this movie is not that low. It should not be scored that low on IMDb, because you watch it and you're like, what? And even like the new Craft movie, which I thought was interesting. I actually liked the new Craft. I know some people haven't liked it, but I noticed that it's the same kind of thing. It's a female-driven horror movie, and there's this pushback from, I hate to say this, mostly male reviewers on IMDb. So,
I mean, they did the same thing to Captain Marvel, which even
exactly.
Even me, who's like a huge Marvel fan, like, I can tell you that I think that Captain Marvel had like its flaws here and there, but the way that people, were reviewing it on IMDb made it seem as if it was like the worst movie ever.
and I hate to say this, but I'm a big Star Wars fan, but like Star Wars fans are the worst when it comes to that.
They're really harsh.
So I'm like, you know what? I know what the movie is. I'm proud of the film. I don't have to be like, IMDb doesn't really bother me.
Yeah.
But I thought it was mighty suspicious when it happened, because we, piracy happens and stuff like that. So, it's just one of those things where you just have to shake it off and keep your head high and just keep moving.
I personally think that the movie is great, and this is coming from someone who actually, believe it or not, isn't the biggest horror movie fan. Even though you see my collection of Nightmare on Elm Street, I'm never saw like the Insidious movies, haven't watched a lot of the Saws or anything. So for me, I'm like, if I can like it.
And it seems to be there's genuine people who are genuinely enjoying it, which that's, again, like, you can write anything you want on IMDb, even by not even watching the movie. There's no proof that you watched the movie. So it's like, I think that we made something that I think is going to find its audience and do very well. So.
Well, I know right now it's out in select theaters. Kristen had told me that it's, going to drive-in movie theaters. And I believe Eric said that it's coming out on demand in January.
So right now, we were at the Lamley for a week in LA. And then I think we're still, you can still watch through virtual cinema through the Screenland Online Theater. And then they're working on some other things right now. That I know that they're taking the movie to the American film market this week. And then the VOD and DVD and possibly Blu-ray, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm hoping, is all in January. So
Awesome.
It's cool. And we did the DVD commentary 2 weeks ago. She was in town. We did the DVD commentary. So that was fun.
Awesome. Well, I hope everyone definitely keeps an eye for that. And before I wrap everything up here, Patrick, what other projects do you have that we should be looking out for and everything? I know that you're working from home right now. I heard your kids, which was like really funny.
They're upstairs, and it always sounds like there's a stampede upstairs. I've got a short film I'm directing in December, which is going to be kind of a fun. I produced a short film for another director in July, which is going to be out on the festival circuit. I have a short film right now called Spiritual Practice that's out on the festival circuit. It's going to be playing at the New York City Horror Film Festival in December. And I think they're all virtual as well right now. And then it's playing at Anomaly Film Festival, which is out of Rochester. And that's in a couple weeks. I think that's November 12th weekend, maybe. I don't know that for sure. And then, I've got my next feature I'm kind of looking at right now. I've got a couple things. It's tricky because you're looking at your scripts and you're like, okay, how do we tailor this now to the world we live in? Because we have to be there's just a lot more precautions that need to be taken for crew and for cast and all that. So, I can't do big crowd scenes right now. Obviously, we would never have been able to do the concert scene. A lot of things would have been changed if we'd shot that movie this summer instead of 2019. So I've got a lot of things going on, so I'm hoping I'll keep you if people can follow me on Facebook. Just look me up, Patrick Ray, on Facebook and Instagram, and I keep people kind of informed of what I'm working on. So
yes, absolutely. And in general, everyone is being safe and healthy during these crazy times.
Yeah, in general. I mean, we'll see. The kids are keeping the kids at home. So,
well, it's been awesome speaking with you. I'm really happy to have gotten a chance to watch I Am Lisa. And everyone, please make sure that you like this interview. Please check out Patrick Ray. And it's been fantastic. Thank you so much, Patrick.
Thank you so much.